there's this idea, I forget where it was presented, and it's that without alignment and without self-awareness and total consciousness, that free will can't exist. That you're actually just you're making decisions that
Mm,
you think are your own, but you're actually being kind of probed from the outside, almost like if you were an animal inside of like a Skinner's box in an experiment, or like that samurai, where like you think you're making the decision, but your anger is making the decision. So, do
yeah.
you think that free will can exist outside of alignment or consciousness, or do you think that it's something else?
I believe everything is your decision, but at the same time, everything is written. Like
Mm,
I like because we cannot know the truth. I
mm-hmm,
think the beauty of life and in like having these conversation and actually connecting in an energetic level is to romanticize and to see the beauty of the possibility. Like I'm okay the fact that okay it's your life is completely written already. That was none of your decision was actually yours. It's already completely made. It's like a fucking game, the video game. I'm fine with that. But if it's completely my decision, that's also completely fine for me. And either way, I think not to know the truth is also beautiful. So yeah, like to me, I think it is absolutely free will, but in I think in the neuroscience, like if based on neuroscience, then if you're unconscious, then you're just a program, right? So like you program yourself whatever it is, and whether it's education or yourself or whatever you're consuming, then you that's not free because it's just a pattern that you have.
mm-hmm,
I don't think that freedom fits with that what we're doing based on unconscious. But if you can step back and expand your self awareness and like, hey, like I want to make a decision based on XYZ because that helps a lot of people or because that will challenge myself, whatever the reason that comes with it. If you are aware and then if it's uncomfortable, I think it's very, very important to address that fact that if you're making some decisions based which is very uncomfortable and still doing it, I think that comes from your free will because there's something that you want to go beyond of that discomfort.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going beyond like your immediate visceral response or your immediate like millions of years of evolution. It's no, I'm actively going to make a choice that my body thinks is going to kill me. Like if you're going into a cold plunge, like that's 100% you
Yeah.
exercising free will in that moment because everything in your body is like, I don't want to do this. But if
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
somebody that like every single night you're putting on Netflix and you're making really bad food choices and you're skipping your workouts and you're like kind of letting your body go by the wayside, I don't know that that's necessarily free will. Or if you see someone and they're driving and like they just you know what I mean? They are really aggressive and they have road rage. Like I don't know that that's free will either. So I see these moments where it's like people are offline. So it's almost like you have to have a massive pattern interrupt, which I think leaning into discomfort can help with that pattern interrupt in order to take the wheel back.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% agree. I think the pain is very, very necessary aspect to to our life.
You had this other interesting video and it was and I wanted to like share it with so many people, but it says stop chasing and to start attracting. Can you explain the difference between chasing and attracting and why chasing doesn't work?
Yes. And I like that. I like that to talk. I love talking about this because a lot of people commented on that video. I'm not sure if it was on the YouTube that you're talking about or the short form content on Instagram, but
I
whichever
saw
it
the
is.
YouTube.
Okay. So a lot of people commented in it like, oh, if you're not chasing, then how, if you both are not chasing, how are you supposed to, connect? And I understand the perspective, but I think there's attracting is very, very active. Like I'm not talking about passive attracting. The the attracting is a verb, and I think it's very, very active, and it's supposed to be active. And chasing is if you look at the lion and deer, and then if you're the lion and chasing deer, then deer is running away from you. And if you're creating that dynamic, it's not about like the verb itself, but I believe it's about the dynamic that you're creating because you're
Mm.
chasing something or somebody and it's running away. Then how are you supposed to get gay? Like if you are, but if you're attracting, it means that it's like you're human. You put the trap and then rat get into that trap or like whatever you want to catch it that get into the trap. And it was very active like action that leads you to not to do any effort, but you got what you wanted. I think that's a different dynamic, and I believe there's certain effort and time and energy that you have to put onto to have this preparation for attracting. It's not like you just sit on the couch and do nothing and you think that you're attracting because that's very passive. If you attract certain thing energetically, because we all are energy, right? We all are energy, and it's fantastic because the science shows that your brain transmit and receive the vibration frequency like a radio station, and your heart is electric organ which produce electric magnetic field outside of your skin, which that's how we energetically communicate, which is amazing. We can feel that like I don't like his mood, or like I don't like her vibe. That's us actually using that energetic feel to actually sense something that, hey, maybe we should stay away from that person. And that's real. So even though we have that legit system, a very, very powerful system, the tool that we can utilize, we're not using it. And then I think that attracting is understanding there's something powerful, even though it's invisible, and being able to utilize it rather than chasing around and then until you're so tired and anxious and depressed and like, oh my god, I can't do it, burnout. But if you understand and like surrender to the fact that you never know, maybe it's tomorrow, but you are preparing that trap and preparing the whole system to attract something that comes into your life or comes to you. I
Mhm.
think that's whether it's a passive or active, and that creating the dynamic of chasing or attracting. I think that's the most important part.
I love that analogy of the lion chasing like a gazelle or a deer. That makes so much sense because even looking back anecdotally, anytime that I've chased, especially a partner, it boy did they run. You know what I mean? Boy were they running.
Yeah,
And then it was the moment where I was at peace with myself and just had that knowing that whenever it is the time, like I will find my person. And that surrender is what led me to meeting my person. And so many people know that, but they don't want to give up the chase. Like there is like that
yeah,
fear. If I'm not actively going after something, then it's just not going to come to me. But when you hear of these great love stories or even modern love stories and people sharing how they met their now husband or their now wife, it was after like a real reckoning, a real moment of radical surrender. It makes me think of like Matthew McConaughey talks about how he met his wife, and the most recent one was on Lex Friedman. And he said, that he was always like, well, I'm this age and I'm supposed to be married and I'm supposed to have kids. And then there was, like that clock ticking and a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety. And he had to get to a place where he visualized himself in his 80s, never meeting the love of his life and being okay with that. And after that, he goes to this party and he sees his now wife across the room and he's like, what is that? And then the rest wrote
mm,
itself. You know what I mean? It's
well,
you create those moments. This young woman I know, same thing. Everyone was trying to set her up, set her up, set her up, a lot of like activation that was happening. And she's just like, no, no, no. She goes to this party. And at the same time, this man walks up to the door and they both just look at each other and they're like, there you are. And now they're getting married. And like, there was just
wow.
it was that moment of surrender and trust. So I can't prove it, but there's enough anecdotal evidence that even again, every time I've chased, boy, did they run. And I'm sure that probably resonates with a lot of people. And how much easier is it? How much more powerful is it to just be that magnet and have everything drawn to you instead of you actively having to exhaust yourself?
Yeah, and when you're chasing, when they're running away from you, they say they're so fast.
Right.
It's like when you're dreaming, you're so slow, and then like when you're running in a dream, you're so slow. and then
Uh-huh.
you just can't catch it. It's logically, it's you just can't catch it. It's
Exactly.
designed to be, fail to catch it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.